Hi, I'm Bill Liberis. I'm the Content Director for the Cloud Powered Work Hub. And I'm pleased today to be joined by Gary Beach, who was the former publisher of CIO, a longtime work colleague of mine, and someone who has had more face time with IT leaders than probably anybody else that I know. Gary, welcome, and thank you for being my guest here today.
It's a pleasure, Bill.
So, productivity has been obviously the driver and the promised a benefit of a lot of BYOD and consumerization stuff that we have seen. Has that promise, in your view, been fulfilled to this point?
Well, yes and no. I mean, we've seen some of the BYOD and mobility and cloud-based services that you're talking about. And they have to be managed carefully. And the way I look at it in terms of cloud, for instance, is almost before and after the Great Recession of 2007, that after that recession, many small mid-cap companies went up into the cloud thinking it's free, it says great. They soon realized there's no free lunch, number one. You need support and service. And most importantly, in terms of productivity, at least in cloud-based productivity apps, the user has to be familiar with the user interface. And if it takes you 10 seconds to find the return button, reply button, that doesn't work.
Yeah, a lot of companies did it wrong. You're right. There is no free lunch. They went up there, they ended up with more data silos than they started with, and it really was just a mess. And obviously there is a better way. There's trusted, good partners out there. In your view, Gary, should IT own social networking in organizations, what with all of the consumerization and BYOD stuff that we're seeing?
It's impossible. I mean, the word own is just, there's just no way. It's like toothpaste out of a tube. It's not going back in. But what smart IT leaders can do is, number one, know their business. If they're going to go down a social media strategy, know your business very well. Because if you're in an intellectual property business, you're going to have more risk, and you have to manage that risk in a greater way than if you're in a company that is not an IP. If you're in the transportation business, you don't want your drivers driving around looking at text messages. So you have to do that. You have to have smart governance policies. You have to communicate with your employees, your partners, your customers on what you're doing in social media. And then I think it's important, I talked to an IT leader just a couple of weeks ago on what she does. She celebrates her successes. And everybody likes to know things are working. So control is not the right, own is not the right word. That's never going to happen. They have to be partners with their constituents.
Yeah, I'm kind of reminded, maybe a half a generation ago when people really started getting involved with the internet, and the question is, well, how much time should IT and local managers let people surf the web and whatnot?
Well, you're talking about BYOD. Right. You and I both remember vividly in the mid-1990s when the internet, I mean the internet was founded before then, but when Tim Berners-Lee came out with the browser with Mark Andreessen, people going, I'm going to put my business on that? No way. And everybody put it behind intranets, and the wall was never broken. And we're seeing the same thing now with BYOD.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of BYOD and consumerization, it's really, as much as at any time before, kind of forcing IT to focus on the end user. Right. I think as much as any time that I can remember. Is this causing particular challenges, and if so, what are they?
Well, there are some people who are of the school of thought that way back when mainframes were around, and empowered just a couple of people. Now technology with BYOD and cloud-based services is empowering everybody. And IT, they're saying, do we need IT leaders? In fact, what has happened, this era has, with all these new innovations you were just mentioning, has made IT as complex as ever, if not more. In terms of billions of devices, 25 zettabytes of data, that's 25 with 21 zeros after it, and we all call big data. So IT, it's never been a better time to be an IT leader, because there's so many tools to use, and there's so many ways you can enhance your company's business.
Well, it brings me to my last question then. Okay, so we need simplified management.
Right.
We need stronger security. And oh, by the way, give the end users anytime, anywhere, any place, and on any device access. Is that going to kill IT ultimately? That kind of order?
Well, some would say that we don't have chief electricity officers around, and what's going to happen? IT is just going to become a service. You're going to flip it on, flip it off, and you're not going to need men and women around to manage it. And that goes as long as the first time your email crashes and you're calling somebody at the help desk. There's always going to be another big bang theory, so to speak. Over the years of information technology, like clockwork, every 15 years, a new iteration comes around. And the last has been around about 2010. People call it cloud. I call it as a service. So you have infrastructure as a service, platforms as a service, applications as a service. This era is going to go until 2025, in my opinion. So we're just 3 years into it. You know, IT's got and those IT leaders have a long and prosperous future ahead of them.
15 years. I guess PCs, the internet, and now the cloud,
You got
cloud
it.
era services. Yeah.
And before that was the mini computer, before that was the mainframe.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. You're spot on. Well, Gary Beach, former publisher of CIO, thank you very much for being my guest here today. Great stuff.
Thanks, Bill.
And I'm Bill LeBaris with IDG saying thank you very much for joining us here today as well.